Welcome to the After the Show Movie Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Ascully and Cidtalk. We're addicted to movies. Are you? Welcome, Cidtalk. Hello, how are you doing? How's it going on this fine day?
As multiple questions. All, yes.
Answer yes or
yes.
no.
The following answer is yes to your questions. Do I win a prize?
You do. You win the opportunity to be on a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, any podcast.
Yes. This podcast.
This is not the before the after the show discussion. It was you fiddling with the audio and also us discussing a couple of other things, just random stuff. You know, when you're married, you talk about stuff.
We talked about pot pies.
We did.
And
movie. We had to discuss this movie a tiny, tiny bit.
We did. So let's get on with it. Cidtalk.
You say that with like vitriol.
Yeah.
Cidtalk. Like I'm the villain in your story.
All right. It's Saturday, April the 20th. This is After the Show number 835. We look at a new movie every week because we're a movie review podcast.
Makes sense. Makes total sense.
It does. And this week we're looking at the movie Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver. It's a 2024 release, out now on Netflix streaming. It's PG-13. You can go and watch it right now. Cidtalk, give us the synopsis of the movie Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver.
Okay, first, you know, I love you and I love your accent.
Mm-hmm.
All my husbands have had accents.
All mine have too.
However, when you say that, it sounds like somebody who's giving a very specific kind of music away. Ska giver. Ska giver. Get it?
No.
Music ska.
You mean like Madness?
I don't know who's actually a ska band. I just know what it says, but it's
The Specials Madness.
just for anyone out there who might be like, what's the movie? It's Scar Giver.
And it stars Madness and The Specials.
It does not. So Scar Giver. But I'm just saying, because I love you, and even sometimes I am like, what was that word? And I just do context and I figure it out. In terms of this movie, it is just the rest or more of the same story from Rebel Moon. So it's all one big long story. And it is a rebel moon. There's people on a moon from a planet in a galaxy not far away. Of course, we can't say that. But there's like a oppressive regime, go figure, and the people on this moon want to rebel against it. It's really not complex.
It is not. It's almost like a 3-year-old wrote it.
I mean, the same story. I can't knock the story because, I mean, we tell the same stories over and over anyway, but...
Let me give you the actual synopsis off the Netflix screen, because there is no box. It says, Cora and surviving warriors pretend. No, they don't pretend. They prepare to defend Velt, their new home, alongside its people against the realm. The warriors face their pasts, revealing their motivations before the realm's forces arrive to crush the growing rebellion.
That's on the box or on the description?
On the Netflix screen, yes.
Okay, so that whole little section that took about 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
I wanted to kill myself during that section.
I didn't mind it. However,
Okay,
so what it is our little group of collected warriors, heroes, ragtag, you know the drill from all kinds of movies.
Yes.
They sit at a table and basically say of something from their past and why that makes them want to stay and fight for the people on this moon. That's it, right? I mean, it's very brief, really, when you think about it. It's a little bit slow. I didn't mind it. But to have that on the box or on the description is really weird.
Like, that's the part of the movie that you're trying to sell?
Is that what's important to the person who wrote this, who happens to be the person who directed it, right? So that's really odd because that's a very tiny thing to me in the whole of this particular story. Getting on with the story and the movie, I'll just say right now, I enjoyed it. But what did I say about 3/4 of the way through at one of our pee breaks that we do?
Because we're all elderly and incontinent.
I said, I'm not going to address that. I said, this is a kind of movie I have to be in a very particular kind of mood to enjoy it. And I was enjoying it. So I was just open to the whatever it is. It's a very romanticized fight for the underdog, you know, David and Goliath story. That's all it is. There is nothing complex or interesting beneath the surface of this story.
No.
But I enjoyed it. I kind of let myself languish in their world. And I'm familiar with the characters already because we watched the first part of the story in the other movie. So I was kind of like, okay, I get what's up here. And this guy, the bad guy, he needs a slap. So that's, I kind of went out from that approach. It's
basic, right?
It is basic, but so is your beloved Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so is every other story about the little guy versus the big guy. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And as we said in the first half of this review, back in December, this movie was pitched as a Star Wars movie. So clearly there are things that are similar.
But the thing is, what's-his-face didn't invent space and like regimes and whatnot. I mean, George Lucas wrote it in the 70s. It's not like he invented the idea.
Well, George Lucas said he saw the Magnificent Seven and he also saw samurai films and he went, I could make a space film that's kind of in the vibe of those.
Yeah.
So he was inspired by something else.
And before he wrote that, Star Trek was pitched as a Western in space. And that was in the 60s. So we're not talking about new ideas at all on any front here. So I don't want to even be like,
so my problem with this movie is
one problem
is Zack Snyder, who I love.
You do love him.
And he has a way with visuals. And I think he does in this movie. There are some good visuals in this movie. There are also some terrible, like muddy looking visuals that I'm like, is this really a $200 million movie?
There was a lot of blurry edges. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he seems to use that style, doesn't he? The kind of like...
Yeah, like I think it's a artistic choice, which I'm all down for the art stuff, but if it's distracting, it's no longer like aesthetically pleasing.
Now, my issue, right, and on my screen I have all the names of the characters wrote down, but I couldn't tell you the name of anybody in the movie. In fact, I had my own names for them. I was like, that's Samurai Woman... That's Furiosa.
That's Digimon.
That's Digimon Hounzoom.
Like his whole name.
Yeah. Like
that's the only name I know for him is Digimon, so I just call him that in my head.
And if you gave me a quiz, like what are these characters called? There's absolutely no way I can remember the names.
Yeah, and at the end, I mean, there's no spoilers here because it is what it is, but when she's like, you knew that I was so-and-so, so-and-so, I'm like, oh, I forgot her name.
I mean, it's just like a load of names being thrown at you and like unmemorable characters. I think the most memorable character in the whole thing is like Anthony Hopkins, who's not even in the movie. It's just his voice.
And that robot is way underutilized. I mean, my goodness.
Anthony Hopkins plays a robot. The robot has a big part in this movie. And by big part, I mean about 4 minutes of screen time. That's
because let's get to the story part. So original story, there's a king who runs whatever. And then this horrible dictator guy has the king killed. And the woman who was there, who supposedly killed the princess, has been on the run. That's our main heroine in this story.
Right.
Along with that was a robot who was built and programmed purely to protect that princess who was slain and or not slain, or in the original part of the story. And he's now on this moon. And his whole objective was just to protect that princess. Well, he's been told she's dead. So this robot has basically gone into the wild and trying to absorb like his own meaning and purpose and watching the humans and kind of becoming an amalgamation of like technology and nature and all that. But that's not happening in front of us at all.
No.
It's a wonderful story. That's the movie I want to see, right? The journey of a robot. A droid
who watches what's going on and makes his own decisions.
Still serving as a side character in the movies, which we can include, of course, Star Trek, Star Wars. A lot of science fiction has the little side droid, humanoid droids who they're not like the main journey isn't theirs, right? Data from Star Trek would be one of the main ones where he's always wants to be human, and that's a big thread throughout all of his journey. But that's the story. That's the movie I want to see. Why does he have horns on his head, the robot? He got some horns from a dead animal somewhere, and he's got like a cape of
He put them
greenery.
On his head at the end of the first movie.
Right, to show that he was fully in
I'm
the
making
nature.
up my own decisions here. Fashion is my first thought.
But I'm saying that I'm interested, but he's really underutilized, I'm guessing.
But he's the one that you remember. That's the...
He is.
Yeah, you're like...
Actually, one of my main remembery ones is the... one who she comes from the Rebels. She starts out with the paint across her eyes, or they start with the paint across their eyes.
Yeah.
She, to me, is her and the guy who rides the bird, who's also from
Supergirl.
Supergirl. Yeah. Those are my two favorites, actually. And I don't know their names. I
No,
have no clue.
You'll never know the names, even
He's
if
a
you read them.
prince and she's a rebel. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But I like them. I have.
Can you even name the baddie's name in this movie? And it's not Darth Vader.
Admiral something? Is it?
Yeah, Admiral something.
And I don't know.
Admiral something is a better name for him because you'd remember that.
King something, Admiral something,
It's
Princess
called
somebody.
Atticus Noble.
That's the. Oh,
That's
okay.
the bad guy's name.
Okay.
Atticus Noble.
See,
You'll never remember that.
I'm shocked and amazed because I don't know.
So that's my issue. Everybody's forgettable, mostly.
We're not making this sound good, but I think
I
we
don't
both
think it's
enjoyed
good.
it.
I don't think it's good.
Did you enjoy it?
Not really.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed, on a base level, watching sci-fi things blow up and watching weird weaponry get shot. That's what I liked.
Oh, the weapons are awesome. And I don't even care about the fights and stuff, but I really did like the kinds of weapons they had.
Yeah, I liked the design, the weapons. I feel like the design of this borrows off a lot of other stuff, anime, etc. You know, those tanks, they're very anime.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that I've seen elsewhere. So I feel like it borrows from everything.
Everything does, though. I know that.
Everything does, but this makes me think of everything else. So does that mean this isn't that interesting? Because I'm like, oh, look, Akira. Oh, look, blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, Star Wars. Oh, look.
C-3PO. Oh, and you thought the two main characters reminded you of Han Solo and Leia, and they don't at all.
No, also, the two characters' love story is just so, like, they met each other in the last movie, and now they're, like, undying love for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have no comment on it because I was like, what?
I was like, what? You've only known each other. I don't even know how long it is between
No, I
this
think
movie.
she was on their moon for like 3 years, remember? In the original story, she was there and he was sort of like, they were close all that time.
Still, I never bought it. It wasn't Han and Leia love.
But you reminded you of that, which I was like, what?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying that I believe this movie's bad, because I just think of everything else that I like and kind of try and apply it to it.
I don't think it's bad at all. I mean,
I don't want to watch it again. Like, he's doing a 6-hour director's cut of this movie.
That makes my head spin.
Yeah, it does. I feel like 4 hours, which is what these two parts are, is easily enough for this story.
No, this part, it's combined. So the other movie was 2 hours. This one's 2 hours. I think you might...
That's what I mean, 4 hours.
Right, but it sounds like this movie was 4 hours long.
No,
it was
2 hours and 3 minutes. It was.
2 hours and 3 minutes actually was perfect. I couldn't handle more of it, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I did not enjoy it, but I will say I enjoyed part 2 more than part 1, only because the battle was somewhat satisfying for me.
I don't know, because in the beginning, like the first one, you get to know everybody, you're going to gather the crew, and it's all a little bit interesting, at least, even though we don't make them fully fleshed out three-dimensional characters. You're on sort of a journey of collecting your team, which I don't find uninteresting.
The beginning of this movie, I was sniggering to myself in a weird way. You know why? The farming scenes.
I think I think I got a beat on that, because what you get are slow motion of the farmers harvesting the wheat, and then the chaff blowing off the wheat, and then piling the wheat up. And as slow as I'm talking, it's slower than that.
Yes.
What the basis of that story is, however, there was African on the continent of Africa. There were tribes. I think we even heard this story from someone maybe on Itchy Boots told her the story of where they're from, that when they were being invaded at one point, because, you know, all kinds of colonists have always tried to take over all the different areas of Africa, that one tribe, I think it was Itchy Boots, because she went to see the king and they had this big palacey place.
Right.
And that their method of fighting was to just keep farming, and keep working and do their work and make sure that they were productive, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that this story was lifted from that in some part. So I feel like he maybe got lost in the concept of that a little bit.
Well, it was slow motion farming.
It was.
And then it cut away to the bad guy and he said, what are they all doing? And then the guy said, well, they're farming, they're getting together the stuff. And then it cut back to the planet And it did slow motion farming again. I was like, we understand they're farming. We've seen them farm in slow motion. We've seen a man say they're farming, and now we're watching them farming again. Please stop farming. You know?
Well, I'll be honest. They were some of my favorite visuals. So, I mean...
This is almost comedic.
It did feel a little comedy, yeah.
And then there was that scene where, during the farming, a young man looks at a young woman and gets all, like, flustered and, I'm in love.
Farming's turning me on.
I said, like, I think farming makes these people horny, because it's like, he's like, oh, farming. Oh.
So it's the equivalent, however, if you take away the farming element of it, it's the equivalent of what they do later, which is train the farmers to be like use weapons and to fight.
Yes.
But that was very brief. It took about 5 minutes of
exactly.
And we didn't have a lot of slow motion for the battle preparedness. But in other movies, you would have spent 10 to 15 minutes to show all of the, we've seen it in Braveheart, we've seen it in Robin Hood movies where all the, the low tech people are being trained up to be warriors. I think that's what the farming thing was supposed to be.
So what I'm saying is the farming to fighting ratio was off. Right?
Right.
Or the farming to training ratio. It was making me giggle, and I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be giggling. I think I'm supposed to be like, oh, there's this big threat coming, and we're getting ready for it. But then when the battle does kick off, I was actually enjoying it a little bit.
I think you're supposed to appreciate how hard they work, and that this regime coming along and being like, give us all your wheat or we're going to kill you all is just, it's bullshit. And it is bullshit. But to show how hard these people work, and they're all kind of like happy about it and they're in love with it. They get a little turned on by it, as you say. And so you're supposed to get in the mind like, screw this admiral guy. Like, he wants to come and destroy this. You're supposed to hate him more, I think, for that. Yeah. Kind of like in the beginning of one of your favorite movies, No Judgment, Armageddon. We go around the world and
picking
see
up
people.
Our little crew.
Yeah, well, not that. Before that, you see all the people in the street and in stores and in their homes. You're supposed to like get the idea that Earth is worth defending against this asteroid thing.
Even Michael Bay held off on the farming in that movie.
It wasn't farming, but it was showing people all doing life in different cities around the world. And it was shorter, yes, but it's still, that was what we're trying to accomplish, is like a shared, a reason to fight against the foe.
So the last thing I wanted to say about the plot is Zack Snyder has gone on record saying this is two movies, Rebel Moon Part 1, Rebel Moon Part 2, and it's a big giant space opera. And he never mentioned anything about anything else, but how does this movie, right at the very end, it's clear they want to make another, don't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not even the end of the story properly. It's like,
nope.
Oh, there's more of this. So I went and had a look. Did he ever say there was going to be a third one? He did not, ever. But then in an interview very recently, he said he's optimistic about another one. So
yeah, that's what I don't love about Zack Snyder is he has an element of like, I'm kind of cool because I'm a little bit secretive.
I like Zack Snyder, and he comes across really cool in interviews and stuff. But I do believe he's like keeping that a secret that there's another movie. What does that serve?
He's just trying to be cool.
Yeah. Would they be the kind of person who didn't like the first one, wouldn't even watch the second one knowing there was a third one because they're like, no, I can't do 2 more of these. You know?
I mean, there's probably at least one person in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I was disappointed. Even though it does have an ending, it feels like a
It really
setup.
doesn't. That's the problem I have with these movies. Unless you know ahead of time that you're in for a big serial event, like Marvel Universe is going to take you 30 fucking years to get through the whole story. I get that now. I think it's really lame and lazy, and it's like a cash cow. You literally are just hanging people on a hook. I find that tacky and cheap and really poor storytelling. However, if I jump on board and I'm like, I get it. I've got a lot of other things I can get more instant gratification out of, so I'm fine with that. This, I can forget about it now, and if it never happens, I'm fine.
Instead of going through the cast for this one, it's the same cast as the last one. There's nobody new, is there?
You're imagining that someone listens to every single one of our podcasts?
Well, go back and listen to that one. The same cast. It's not even like a different movie. It's the same movie, right?
They literally filmed it all at the same time.
Yes. So you can't say, well, Digimon was great in this one, but sucked in the other one.
No, they're all the same.
Yeah.
I mean, the one person two people that I really, well, I guess it's three. Those two I mentioned already, and the lady with the robot hands, because her scenes, he for some reason, he really was delicate with her when she was telling her story of when her planet or village was being destroyed by the regime. It was very touching. Again, I want to see that whole movie.
It's the samurai lady, yeah.
When she's fighting and comes to a unfortunate end, spoiler alert, the slowness of that and the little kid coming around, that was really good. And I felt like she was above what the whole movie was like. You know what I mean? She kind of pushed past the cheapness of it all. So I liked her a lot. I don't know her name, so I apologize for that, but she's really good.
Directed by Zack Snyder again. Again, it's the same director. He's directed other things. It's the same movie. We can't really say, hey, he did much better on this part because he made it all in one giant big piece, right? So the first scene he filmed could have been from the second movie. Who knows, right?
True.
So IMDB Reviews, what are those?
Those are reviews on a website called imdb.com, Internet Movie Database, in case you don't know what letters stand for, because IMDb is not a word. And they are the lowest rated reviews. People have taken the time to go on and say things like the classics, waste of my time, worst movie ever made, I don't know why everyone gives this a good review, blah, blah, blah. And you love them because you like to give them a little voice.
Yes.
And then point out that you just think they're ridiculous. But when you dislike the movie, I can imagine you have some sort of camaraderie with these people.
Yeah, probably. The first guy says, the Empire needs flour to make some pancakes.
Yes.
The writing is awful. The plot is comedic. It seems like ChatGPT was poorly prompted and left unsupervised and regurgitated a script. The result is so cheesy. The actors seem unconvinced by the material. Some lines of dialogue are delivered as if they're still learning them, mumbled off camera. It's tragic.
A bit harsh, but I get it.
Second guy, if you're talking of harsh, the second guy's title is Absolutely Putrid.
Oh my God.
What a horrible movie. The first one was a hot mess, but somehow this one is even worse. I've never seen such an overuse of slow motion. What does that gain us? It has ruined the effect for me going forward. Now I'm going to think of Zack Snyder and the farming scenes.
I'm still hung up on putrid because that's not a massively used word, is it? When you're talking about movies, I love that.
The third guy says, the absolute dumbest film I've ever forced myself to watch.
Right on.
Sure, it looks stunning, an absolutely visual gorgeous film, sometimes. I agree with that. Sometimes it looks really good. When the ship was falling out of the sky, I was like, yeah, this looks really good.
That was really good.
But then other times I was like, what is this? What are we looking at?
The other 2 hours and 58 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 1 hour and 58 minutes.
He says, the story seems to be written by a 15-year-old in a freshman creative writing class, and it appears as if the dialogue has been intentionally cut in many places. The cut in dialogue makes the film feel vapid and childish. I'm really disappointed in this film, and I am done with Snyder. He could have stuck with turning Army of the Dead into a TV series, in my opinion. I think he means he should have. All right, so that's the people on IMDb who didn't like it.
I did find the name of the lady who played the samurai warrior, and her name is Bae Doona.
Yes.
And in the movie, her name is Nemesis. So that should have been memorable, but Bae Doona. And she was really good.
In the first movie, there's a giant spider fight that involves her.
Yeah,
and
but
that
it was
one
crappy.
of my favorite parts.
Oh my God, that was the worst part of that movie.
No, it's because we got introduced to her.
True, but I mean, the fight was what did he say? Putrid. Putridly unsatisfying.
All right, conclusion. Let's give this movie a score. I'm going to give Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, a 5 out of 10.
I'm going to give it like a 5.6 because I think it's above, a little sliver above
I think
average.
it's above 4.
But below 6?
Yes.
So you're teaching us math now?
Yes.
I get Cheryl. I'm going to give it a 5 point something.
A what?
A 5 point something.
All right.
I'm going to mumble my lines as I go offline.
Thank you to Netflix. Next week, A24. We know we're in for a treat when A24 are on the case, right?
I mean, you never know.
So we're going to watch Love Lies Bleeding by A24.
Can we just watch it now?
No. All right, movie recommendations. I'm going to give you some Zack Snyder / Rebel Moon recommendations. Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's best superhero movie. And because of the guy in this who plays, from Supergirl, I'll give you Supergirl, the TV show.
There you go.
He played Jimmy Olsen, right? That guy. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yes. I think. Maybe.
I don't remember his name, but I think that was the role he was playing, yeah.
I did like him in that, though. Supergirl is very cheesy, let me say.
It really is, but it was captivating.
Charming in some way.
I didn't watch all of it until you were watching it once, and I'm like, I'll watch an episode with you, and then it was like, oh.
I think you didn't see season 1, but saw all the rest of it. Yeah. But it was charming in a kind of like kid-friendly...
Cheap TV way.
Cheap TV way, yeah.
Yes. And my recommendations are coming from the 20th century. That's from 1900 until 1999 for the kids out there who don't know what the 20th century was. It was the 1900s. And these movies are in the action/action adventure department. I can't attest to their quality, only that I have seen them. I don't remember them all, but I know that I've seen them. Land, that was a good one. Land, remember? Had Princess Buttercup in it.
I do remember that,
Oh my goodness. And this movie has...
She went away to live in the wilderness.
This movie has her prince, who plays...
Carrie Hughes. Carrie...
Elwes.
Elwes?
I never know how to say his last name, but that's the link there. So
Yeah.
Land is a movie about a woman who's emotionally distraught and goes and lives in a cabin, and it's just a self-discovery, but it's really good. In my opinion, as people like to say on the internet,
Yes.
Cry Macho. I forget what that is. Do you
That
remember?
was... Clint Eastwood directed it, and it was about the kid across the border thing. And he had a chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I liked that one. That
Yeah.
was kind of intense. And then I have The Never-Ending Story, which ties us back to Princess Buttercup because it's that kind of like dreamy story. Again, Never-Ending Story is a story up against a Goliath thing, which is basically the nothingness. But if you've never seen it, I recommend it. Where the Wild Things Are. Woman, where's my breakfast? Is what we
I'll
like to
never
say.
forget that line. Very
The
funny.
kid says to his mom, he's getting all like cocky and stuff. And he's like, woman, where's my breakfast? And the mom looks at him like, excuse me?
Excuse me.
And then Cinderella. And I
What-
don't know which Cinderella
What do
that
I
is.
say to you like almost every day when it's breakfast time?
Woman, where's my breakfast?
And only because of that joke do I get away with it.
Yeah, barely. Because I know now I'm questioning whether I know that it's a reference or you're just
It's funny
using
that
it.
like 20 odd years later, we still say that 20 years later.
It is funny. And Cinderella, I don't know which iteration I'm talking about here. I didn't put a year next to it, but any of the Cinderellas. Any Cinderella that
Anything with Cinderella.
Well, no. Is there only the animated one that's actually called Cinderella? The rest have different names, don't they?
Right.
And she's incorporated in many stories, but that's it.
All right. Thank you very much for your recommendation, Cidtalk.
Ah.
All right. Ascully stuff. I've been playing a new game on Steam. It's called Footgun Underground. Don't say that too fast.
Foot gun.
Footgun Underground.
That's like foot feet.
It is, yeah. So what this is, it's a roguelike game, which there's lots of roguelike games these days where you play them and you do better each time. You know what that is, the roguelike now.
I don't know what that means, but...
This one, Footgun Underground, I've been playing it this week. It's really cool. Also works very well on the Steam Deck. You get dropped into this little dungeon. You're a little guy, and his only weapon is his football, right? Football as in soccer ball, UK football, right?
Okay.
It's a end-of-the-world apocalyptic type area, and there's like wildlife trying to reclaim the subway station. And he has to fight his way through the subway station armed only with a football. So you have to kick the football at the enemies to clear the enemies out of your way. Now, as you go through each, because it's sci-fi based, as you go through each level, you get upgrades to your football, and your football becomes this murder machine football. My football was just a regular football in the first level. By the end of the levels, it had saw blades attached to the football.
Okay, got it.
So you're going through each level, you're clearing out a certain amount of enemies, you're collecting like upgrades, and you're trying to get further each time. And if you die, you restart at the beginning, but you get to keep some of the things that you have collected along the way. It's a pixel art style, it's side-scrolling, it's really fun. It's one of those games where you can just have like a quick blast on it and then put it back down, 5 minutes at a time maybe. It's on Steam. You can buy it. I'm trying to find out when you can buy it, because they did send me a key for review. You can buy it on April the 30th on Steam. It doesn't have a price. Oh, yes, it does. It will be £14.99 in England.
What does that sound like? Does that seem fair?
It seems fair for this kind of game, because it's the kind of game that if you dig this kind of game, there is a demo as well, by the way, if you want to try what it's like, that's available now on Steam. But it's the kind of game that doesn't really end. You can always do better each time. You know what I mean?
14 quid seems high. Is that $10?
It says €14.99 Great British Pound USD. So it's $14.99 regardless of where you live.
Okay, that seems high to me for what you've described, but you know.
It seems in line for me for an indie game like this with a lot of replayability. So it's out on April the 30th. It'll be $14.99 no matter where you live. It's called Footgun Underground, and I recommend it. Cidtalk, I have one more thing in my Ascully stuff.
Aye.
We are the ultimate Walking Dead fans, right?
That's a question.
I think we are.
I don't know about I don't agree with that, except that I'm the zombie fan.
Yes.
I will watch anything with zombies, and I'm not judgmental.
We have watched all of The Walking Dead.
I also
Everything.
watched Zombiever, just so you measure my standards.
Right. But as far as The Walking Dead goes, we have watched everything Walking Dead to this date.
Also,
and played all of the games.
Correct. And I've watched you play the Epic games. So I've watched that as if that was me watching stories on the TV.
So this week we decided to wait till The Ones Who Live, which is the new Rick Grimes show, had ended so we could watch it all in 1 week. And we did. And how did you feel at the end of it?
Unsatisfied.
I felt like after I watched this movie this afternoon, it's been a bad week.
I don't think it's bad. See, that's where I think we differ.
I was very bored during a lot of it.
Yeah, and I didn't care how any of it would end. So when we were watching Walking Dead and the end of the Walking Dead series itself,
yes,
even the last whole season, I was like, I'm totally over it. If you hadn't made it part of our evening entertainment package.
So I'm the ultimate Walking Dead.
Yeah. Well, I would have maybe kept up on it, but I would have saved it all up and probably just watched it all in one go and been like, okay, that's it. Because as much as I have a low standard for the quality of the overall zombie worlds that people create, The Walking Dead starts with an idea. Something happened to cause the world in a reality-based situation to go zombified, right?
Right.
They don't call them zombies. In the story, over fucking 20 years of telling the story, or however long it's been since it started, 15, 16 years, I want the story. I want to not just be told by some lab rat in a cave in the first season or second season that, oh, the government did this. They tried to do this thing, and then they gave someone a shot, and then it spread around the world. And for some unexplained reason, everyone has it now. And if you just die of a heart attack, you're going to be a zombie. And I've never understood why. Someone wants to point it out to me, that is fine. But if I don't understand it, it means you haven't told me the story very well. I want to see the progress somewhere, like an actual whole lab. It could be the villains of the story. I don't even care. Like a maniacal government who's like tucked up on a mountain somewhere, who's like trying to puppeteer everyone. And they're like, oh, yes, we've made all the zombies. Ha ha ha. And this is how we did it. That's fine. I just want something. No, I don't give a shit. Do not give a shit about Rick and Michonne. I couldn't care less. I couldn't have cared less if he did die on that bridge. I didn't care at the time.
No.
Don't care now.
My problem with this whole thing was Rick is supposed to be the heart of the show, but so much time has gone by and nobody cares at this point.
Yeah, we
bringing him back now is just like, eh.
We got used to him not being the leader. Now, again, we loved it. I love the beginning because like he wakes up in the hospital. It's been 3 weeks in the very first episode of the whole Walking Dead world. And keep in mind, I never read the comics. You did, or the novel, graphic novel. You have, I have not. So I don't know anything about the story other than what I see on the show and the games. That's intriguing. And now we get to see his life and journey throughout it. And then this little troop of people and whatnot. That's fine. I dig that. But if you're going to kill him off on the bridge, just do it. If you're not going to kill him on the bridge, then the very first episode of the next fucking season needs to be where Rick is. Like this show needed to be layered on top of the next season of Walking Dead.
Yes.
Like it needed to be part of the world where we would cut over to Rick in his world where he's been kind of held captive and become a soldier and all that shit. And then cut back over to Daryl and Carol and all the people and how they're struggling. I'm not the person in charge, so I couldn't make that happen. But if you want people like us, and we did watch it also, to be fair, they got what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
Eyeballs on it. But it was very empty calories. And it's unfortunate. It's super unfortunate because Daryl's show, really good. I liked it. It was in France.
I would rather watch the 6-hour cut of Rebel Moon than watch it again. The Rick show.
Oh, I wouldn't. That's equal to me. I don't know how to do one of those. But I would watch, and I will, if they make more Daryl and they make more of Negan and Maggie in the city. Yeah. Those, I mean, I was fine because we're progressing through different types of people. And I mean, The Walking Dead, their thing is there's a bad guy and a community and it all looks fine. And then our troop comes along and all the shit hits the fan, and then that whole community is destroyed, and the bad guy dies, and then they move on, or a bad lady, and then they move on.
Yep.
That's all it ever is. But if you take me to the city and to France and just see a different perspective and some different characters, I was totally down for that. But Rick and Michonne, I couldn't give a shit. I couldn't care less if every time they were in jeopardy, the helicopter crashed, they jumped out of a helicopter, they got blown up. He set off a fucking
grenade?
He was holding a grenade and he blew it up and he lived.
I know.
You know, I don't care anymore.
It's called plot armor.
It is. His armor was pretty damn good on that one. So, I mean, it gives me like this fire belly of like, ugh, but it makes me also skeptical for any future Walking Dead adventures.
Yes. All right, Cidtalk, what's for dinner and your advice, and then let's get out of here.
Pot pies. We're going to have pot pies. You're going to have the plant-based beef pie, and I'm going to have the broccoli and cheese. And we're telling you this because we're vegetarian, and people still like, oh, vegetarian. I really need to eat my bacon. Whatever. I don't give a shit. So we're telling you what we eat because we're not starving. I'm a very round, middle-aged woman. Am I past middle-aged now?
Yes,
I'm
you're
56.
elderly.
I'm not going to be 112, so I guess I'm past middle-aged.
We're elderly. We said that at the beginning of the show.
We're not elderly. Whatever's between middle-aged and elderly, I'm pushing that. So, yeah, we're not starving. We have no health issues due to not eating the dead animal parts. We do eat dairy and eggs, and so we're not vegan. We don't have a philosophy about it. We're not animal rights activists.
No.
So calm down. We just don't eat the meat, and it opens the world of food to you. And that's why we're having boring little frozen pot pies for supper.
And what's your advice?
My advice is very simple. You can love someone for who they are and simultaneously not love or even like how they are. I don't believe in unconditional love because I think we all set conditions and expectations and we get disappointed, and you might keep it to yourself and you might pretend your whole life that you're not judging your child or your spouse or your parent or your sibling or your best friend because you love them unconditionally. But the truth is, that's not the truth, right? So you can love who they are and still look at them as a whole human being and be like, but I cannot, in good conscience for myself, advocate how you behave or the choices you make that may or may not like crisscross into my life or to other people's lives I care about. And yet I still love you. And I don't love how you are, but I love who you are. I feel like that is, a lot of people like to smush all that together when you can, if you separate that and then really start thinking about it, it kind of frees you up to feel good about a person that you don't always feel good about. It depends on what they're doing. Don't get me wrong. If they're a horrible human being, that's different. But, just stuff. People don't like my opinions about a lot of things. And sometimes they have a hard time separating the person I am in the world and how I am from one idea that they disagree with. And so it lumps together either it's love or hate as a whole. And I don't believe in that. So that's it.
Thank you, Cidtalk. Let's get out of it. Ascully.com is the place you can
Oh, wait,
go.
I'm going to interrupt you and say that if my niece is listening to this in the future, I hope she had a fantastic time at Ireland. I love you, and I'm excited that you explore the world.
Thank you.
Sure.
You've put me off my flow. Ascully.com is the place you can go to get this podcast. You can also go to Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube. We're also on TikTok now, Cidtalk.
Tiki-taki. Well, it's just a little...
It's the clip from the podcast.
Just a clip, yeah.
Yeah. You can also go to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that we're on social media. You'll find us, Ascully and Cidtalk. Email feedback to me, ascully@ascully.com. Don't email Cidtalk. She doesn't have an email address. She doesn't use email.
I'm from the 20th century.
Right, and stay classy, Mr. Zack Snyder. Let's see what's next. It's probably more Rebel Moon, though, isn't it?
I don't know. And I'm going to say, think for yourselves, because if you're not thinking for yourself, someone will do it for you.